Falling Walls Circle, Challenges and Foresight. Welcome to the Falling Walls Plenary Table, Africa's Energy Shift, Just and Global Collaboration.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this next circle session here. We're going to be looking at, as you just heard it, Africa's Energy Shift, a just and global collaboration. My name is Jennifer Porto, and I'll be your moderator today, and I'm going to introduce our panelists right now. Seated to my left, we have Bernd Rech, the scientific director of the Helmholtz-Zentrum Berlin, Candace Eslick, a master's student at Catalyst Institute at the University of Cape Town. You're a Green Quest scientist and the Falling Walls Lab Cape Town winner for this year. Sven Godor, the VP Technology Management and Startups at Sasol. And to my right, Catherine Ngile, the executive director of the African Foundation for Women and Youth in Education, Sciences, Technology, and Innovation. Thank you so much for being here today. Now, before we start, we had a chance to talk backstage, and we have some questions that we have planned to say to one another. But I also want to say, if at any point someone across the table from you says something and you really want to chime in, just let me know. I think it's really exciting for me and for everyone if we have a real conversation here at the table, if you have a conversation here at the table. So let's get started. I want to begin with a two-part question. We hear a lot about what a just transition is, right? And how important it is. And of course it is. Germany's Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development says, for those of you that aren't sure, that a just transition means that no one should be left behind on the path towards a climate-neutral, resilient, and socially just economic and social system. So, part one, working within the framework of what we just learned is a just transition. What exactly can just and global collaboration look like? And part two, why is it urgent right now? What's important about a just and global collaboration at this very specific moment in time? Bernd Rech, I'd like to start with you.
Yeah, first of all, it's great to be here and to discuss about this extremely important topic, and also to maybe discuss a bit also about some lessons learned, what we have from collaborations we started in the past years. And I think one important part is that co-creation and trust is highly important, that we really work together, that we solve topics, scientific topics together, but also that we are doing capacity building from the start. And it's a bit like what we will discuss also in the next minutes. And also that we have a collaboration model which is rooted in respect, I think, from both sides, and we need to find a better understanding of our scientific questions about how to develop technology, but certainly also about how our cultures, how we work together. And I think this is also, was in my experience, also highly inspiring, and I think will drive also the cooperation in the future. There are important things like policy frameworks and collaborations. How does it work? How do we get a stable long-term cooperation? Also, how do we get it financed? And it's all about people. So how we work together, how we develop talents together, experts, but this across ages, across cultures. So it's a lot about diversity and using it for the best in the collaboration.
Thanks so much, Bernd Rech. I like that you bring up capacity building and policy frameworks. We're going to come back to those in a second. But first, Candace, I want to ask you, what does a just and global collaboration look like from your perspective, and why is it important right now?
I think it's really important. Well, let me answer the last question. It's really important right now for two reasons to me. Climate action, as well as there are also social aspects to this. Obviously, with climate change, we need to take the necessary steps to make very important changes to help save our planet. On top of that, there are still being people that are left behind. There's a large population of people that still do not yet have access to modern sources of energy, clean energy, and it is typically low-income groups that are also subjected to the harshest effects of climate change. So for me, these are the two aspects as to why it's really important we take action now. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Candace. I'm going to come back to you later today and talk about social inclusion. But Sven Godor, I want to ask you, why right now?
Yeah, I mean, just transition is a very broad concept. And the fossil fuels have been spectacularly unfair in terms of how the wealth that they've generated have been distributed around the world amongst various countries and also within a population. And I think we have the opportunity now, and that's why this is so important, is to actually use this next energy transition to do this in a fairer way. So for me, that's critically important. One of the things that could go wrong in the transition, is that we develop a type of energy colonialism, which is being spoken about by some people, etc., where we'll make all the energy there, and then we'll find a nice carrier for the energy and move it back into the old world and things like that. And we've got to all participate in this and make sure that participation is also equal in the country. And another example for me that is not just as happening is when you do put in a whole lot of, say, energy resources into an environment where energy is desperately required by the broader population, and then a whole lot of that goes to, say, a data center or to crypto mining or something like that. Those are the kinds of effects that we have to avoid as we design the bigger just transition going forward. So it's about getting it equitable, both across the world, but also within the populations in the societies, and getting everyone to play within that role. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Sven. Catherine and Gila, I want to ask you what just and global collaboration can look like and why it's so important right now.
Right. No, thank you very much for that question. Very, very important indeed. And I'm so happy that we are seated here having this conversation. More so because I come from the Global South. And most of the time, we have got collaborations. Global South, Global North. But then the Global North is the producer. Global South is the consumer. And this kind of imbalance needs to be addressed, okay, first and foremost. But now, specifically, access to finance. Access to finance is very, very important for all stakeholders. Co-creation is very, very important. When we talk about co-creation, we're talking about technology. Technology transfer. What kind of technology are we talking about? Is it a local content? We need to be thinking about the local content. Technology in Europe is different from technology in Kenya, in Africa. And so therefore we have to look at the community and see what is best for them. Capacity building, we can't survive without capacity building. Yes, we are in the lab. I'm a chemist, a professor of chemistry, water resource management. But the question is, what is the impact of my research? And so if my research does not impact the community, forget about it. The same applies to the energy. And so therefore, capacity building is very, very important. Socioeconomic support, very, very important. Collaboration. In the university, I don't know whether all universities, but most of the universities I've been to in Kenya, South Africa, Botswana, we talk about a number of areas for a professor or any lecturer. It has to be teaching, it has to be research and development, community development, very, very important engagement, and industrial partnerships, because without money, you can't survive. And no time is the most important, if we forget anything else, gender equality. Because my foundation is about the gender equality. Talking about bringing the girls. Girls, we've got less than 30%. Women who are top researchers. Women who are in research and UNESCO, I'm a laureate of UNESCO 2021. And laureate UNESCO has got a conviction that says that the world needs science, but science needs women. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you so much, Catherine. You touched on a lot of topics that we're going to look at a little bit later, but one that you brought up right now, partnerships. I want to look at, according to the Population Reference Bureau, young Africans are expected to make up 42% of the world's youth by 2030. And I want to look a little bit at what kind of a role the youth can play in creating and realizing a just transition. One of the goals that you've highlighted in your work with the United Nations Group of 10 looks at SDG 17, which addresses strengthening and revitalizing global partnerships for sustainable development. I know that one of the main activities of the African Foundation for Youth and Women in Education, Science and Technology and Innovation is providing mentorship to the possible next generation of STEM talents. When you think about the importance of mentorship, what can partnerships do when it comes to providing youth and women with achievable pathways to future success?
Absolutely. No, thank you very much again asking that question. It's really, it's music to my ears. I'll tell you why. I sit in the L'Oreal UNESCO panel to select the 5 top women, but also important, I also sit in the UNESCO International Consultative Group Plan for Action, Closing the Gender Gap in Science. And so some of the things, like particularly for my foundation, that is the African Foundation for Women and Youth, in education, science, technology, and innovation, and one of the most important things is role modeling. Role modeling. The girls would want to see Catherine Giller comes from the village. She's a professor and seated in Berlin, and that for them is something. It really goes without saying. But also, access to opportunities. In Kenya in particular, we've got students who are doing their BSc, they finish their BSc, but they don't have opportunities. And it's not just in Kenya, it's sub-Saharan Africa. South Africa is very unique when it comes to some of these things, because South Africa, the National Research Foundation, because I lived in South Africa for over 20 years, the National Research Foundation provides opportunities. In fact, you will never, if you want to do a master's degree, or PhD, you can never lack that because the South African government, Department of Science, Technology, Innovation, is investing in that. But in the rest of Africa, we are not. Priority is not. So we've got BSc, and in fact, it is also in the UNESCO statistics. If you look at the UNESCO statistics, and particularly the United Nations Economic Forum for Africa, UNECA that is, it shows that 47% of the people are graduating globally from Africa with a BSc. But the question is, when you look at Africa, women scientists, they are less than 30%. So what happens from 47 to 30%? The reason is because they are disappearing after BSc, get married, have children. You ask them what is a chemical formula for water, they tell you, I don't know. And that is somebody with BSc. And the reason for that is because there's no support. So my foundation is about supporting such leaky pipes so that we can be able to bring them up. Also, girls. If you tell girls to do mathematics in Africa, they are like, mathematics is for men. Say physics, oh, no. Physics, engineering, no, that is man's world. I'm not a man. I want to get married and have children. But the thing is, if you give them role models and say, this is a whole engineer. Oh, so this is somebody I can relate with. Of course, they are very, very happy to relate with that person. And tomorrow, they're also thinking about doing mathematics and physics and so forth and so on. So my foundation is about supporting all these leaky pipes. Partnerships, I'm here because of partnerships. SDG 17, you can't survive without it. Number 5, SDG 5 is about gender equality. 10 is about inequalities, reduce all inequalities. So that is what my foundation is all about, and I'm sorry to take too much of your time. Thank you.
No, it's fantastic. No, what you say, it's really true. Like, people need to have a role model, something that they can look to and be like, I could also do that. Maybe it's not the same thing, the exact same thing that I'm doing, but, ooh, there's someone that's doing something amazing, and maybe I can do something amazing. And I'm pointing to you, Candace, because you have done something amazing. First of all, you won the Falling Walls Lab competition in Cape Town for 2025. I think that deserves a round of applause. So your project was called Breaking the Wall of Clean Cooking in Africa. You are a young South African scientist. You're starting a career in the energy field. And I want to ask, okay, when we look at collaborations of different kinds, partnerships, you're ready for the next step. What kind of opportunities, what kind of partnerships would empower you to be able to drive innovation locally?
Yeah, that's a really, really incredible question. And I just want to echo what Catherine was saying. I am basically at the receiving end of all of these collaborations and all of the opportunities that they present. Without them, I don't think I'd be sitting at this table with such incredible minds. So it's just a true reflection of what these opportunities can provide young scientists, especially from South Africa. And in terms of then moving forward as a young researcher, I think a lot of it comes down to government support is very, very important. And so also once we then develop these technologies, we do the incredible research, it's time to see them go a bit further, go to pilot scale, go to a larger scale. Yes.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. That ties in really nicely. Sven Godor, I want to ask you the next question, talking about going to scale. So we have 2 projects represented here at the table. We have Green Quest and we have Kerosene, and both of these are collaborations between academia and industry. So Sven, I want to ask you, from an industry standpoint, what does co-developing technology with academia look like in practice? In the case of Kerosene, what's made it work?
There's so many factors that made it work, but Kerosene, very broadly, just for everyone's perspective, it's about developing the new generation of catalysts to enable basically sustainable aviation fuels to be produced. So it's the jet fuel. And Bernd and I were joking earlier about it going all the way from the synchrotron, which comes from the HZB, all the way through to a flying aircraft, which is the end that we provide as well. And it's bridging that whole gap essentially, which is important. And sort of the key components that make something like that work is the aligned final goal, that this is what we want to do, this is where we want to go, and we have a very clear perspective of what it is that we want to achieve. The second thing is the complementarity around the instrumentation. We don't have a synchrotron in South Africa. They have the most astounding facilities over here. We have huge pilot plant facilities to do various further steps to do it, which aren't necessarily available to the HZB. So it's the complementarity of those things that are working together. But to make the whole thing work is, and I think you touched on it earlier, is this importance of the trust. Getting a trust going in a relationship like this is incredibly important, because you've got industry who are always worried about IP and who gets to take, ultimately make money out of a development. You've got academics, you've got research institutions, you've got the funders who are saying, but if you do this, we need to get, these rights will sit in a certain way. Navigating that space is always tough. But we've built a long relationship also with the University of Cape Town in South Africa. And simply having them say, guys, you can work with this company. This company knows what they're doing. This is some of the constructs that we use either in a how we work together, or these are the rules that we apply on this sort of stuff, is incredibly important to make it work. So you need that alignment, you need that complementarity, and the complementarity comes also from a people skills perspective. So fundamental science, you've got to have the more applied people on our side. And then perhaps the last one as well that really made this project work for me is just the breadth of collaboration that we had. There's industry players from South Africa, our business here as well in Germany, but then there's also German industry represented, there's research institute, there's universities in Germany, universities in Cape Town, all of these working together. And we can list a large number of figures that just explain how absolutely wonderful this has been here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I have a question to ask you, but do you want to respond to Sven?
I just want to respond to Sven and to Kathleen, because and also to Candace, because I think everything in the cooperation which is important is involved when I'm looking on those three projects I wanted to address. So the two ones you mentioned, and then a third one maybe. It's like what we did in the kerosene project, really going for green aviation fuel. So that's a big topic. It's on chemistry. But it's also on the chemistry between the people. So I think it's from key importance. So we really do technology development together, Africa, Germany, on a very high level. So we have also now a scientist or an engineer from Sasol who is an industrial fellow in our center. So he brings in the know-how of technology to us. So it's not the transfer is really in both directions, in technology, but also in science. So that's from key importance. The other project really is the idea of meeting the clean cooking challenge, where Candace got the award of the Falling Lab. So we met 2.5 years ago for the first time, really cooking together, 60 people from Africa, all around Africa, but also from India. And so we meet and we cook together a full day, and to start our Green Quest cooking project, going for the green cooking gas. And what I also figured out is that there are people who made career now. I think Candace grew up from a more or less starting or in the master level now to winning an award. We had another colleague, Sonia, coming from Uganda. She's now full professor in Loughborough University in UK. In between, she was in our team. So it's really scientists, female scientists, also male scientists. We work together, and it's from key importance. The other part is what we are doing. We are operating Bessie at here close in the southeast of Berlin, so you're all welcome to visit to use our X-ray microscope. So Sasol learned that it's quite helpful to look how a catalyst looks on the microscopic scale. You need some good tomography, you need AI to develop the data. But on the other hand, we are also searching and reaching out to work closer with Africa, because we need the topics to get in. So we had just 2 months ago a workshop in Kenya, and Kenya was also our country of honor. So we invited a lot of scientists there 2 years ago, and this year it will be Niger, Because I think to solve the great questions which need to be solved for our planet, we need to have cooperation, and we need to reach out that the people bring the key questions to us. I think green cooking, it's a question for Africa, for the global south, but it's also a question for our climate together. And this is I just wanted to mention to those three projects.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Those are great. They're three great projects, and you kind of answered my question, which is a little about like, how do these collaborations work, and what are some of the benefits of them? But you both you both mentioned this idea of capacity building, and Catherine, you also talked about co-creation of innovation, and I want to look at that now, because we know that research efforts aren't just export only, but we really have to have here at the table the co-creation of innovation and success. The kind of success that everyone all over the planet needs is going to depend on building joint innovation capacity in Africa, in Europe, and elsewhere. So Sven, I want to come back to you for a question. How can large industrial players like Sasol ensure that African innovation capacities grow in parallel instead of reinforcing dependency?
I think this speaks to something that both Catherine and Bernd and Candice they've all raised, is the importance of developing people. In the case of kerosene, I think we have a number about 30 students, and with a good pretty much 50-50 split between gender, working together, doing PhDs in the program. We have regular exchanges. I think there's also been about 30 exchanges where people get together, share ideas, etc. We have rotations of people from academia and from HZB into Sasol, and we have our colleagues rotating into the universities or to HZB to actually do these things. So working like that is incredibly important, because that slowly but surely develops the capacity. And I think this is at the high tech end of just transition, but it is as important as I think some of the more grassroots initiatives that people can engage in. So we've got to bridge that full spectrum within the transition basis. All of this does, however, require money, and I must say the importance of the critical mass of funding that is required. If this would have been a €2 million program, we would have achieved very little. This is a huge program which has been very generously funded by the German government. We've put in a large amount of money also in kind into this program. And as a result of the huge investment, then you really start generating a virtuous cycle of exchange, of recognizing people and bringing people into each other's organizations.
Thank you so much, Sven. Bernd, did you want to say something there?
Also, what I like in the technology development, or what we look in the Green Quest project, for example, also that there are technology developed which fits to Africa, but on the other hand, we learn that it also fits to us. Because if you learn about, this green cooking gas, there is the development of lightweight gas bottles, which would also have a nice application here or in other places. So I think this is the key for me, is that when I'm working in this project, or let's say I'm a bit as a scientific manager, I'm certainly a bit more in the management. But if I have the possibility to join the workshops, to be involved, to work together, then I'm so confident about what we can do if we work together, and what is possible, what I didn't expect. So I know when we started kerosene, it's 3.5 years ago. So how much can happen in 3 years? I'm completely overwhelmed. Yeah. And it's due to the people, due to the cooperation, certainly, and also due to the budget which was given in. This is also needed.
Yeah. I want to come back and look at policy frameworks, which often means money, in just a second. But before we do that, Candice, I want to turn to you and ask a little bit about social inclusion. And when you're looking at where you are in your career, what would make collaborations between research and industry more inclusive for young African researchers like you?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think a big part of it is, I think it's a topic that we have discussed here on the table, is collaborations between European and African countries do need to incorporate many different decision makers. And if a project, for example, is fit for an African country, I think a lot of African people should also be the decision makers. So it shouldn't be a one-sided situation. And I think currently with most of the projects that are going on, I don't think it is. So we are definitely on the forefront of that. And to add to that, I think the projects also need to be very multidisciplinary. So when we look at the social aspect of this, so a lot of what we do is for people. It's for us. So within our project, in GreenQuest specifically, we have these incredible collaborations between social scientists, engineers, environmentalists, people in business, people in economy specialists. And I think that's what makes it so special. That's what makes it work. And I hope to see more projects involving that multidisciplinariness. Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up. How do you get them all together?
Every 6 months.
And what does that look like?
Well, every 6 months we get together and we cook together. We have our biannual meetings, and we also have often just every week we have weekly meetings, exchanges between groups. It's really quite remarkable, and it's actually very easy. It's a lot easier than people may think. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Catherine and Gila, I'd like to come to the next question to you. What does an initiative like the African Foundation for Youth and Women in Education, Science, Technology, and Innovation support? How does it support capacity building, like the kind we're talking about here?
Right. No, thank you. So we do that first and foremost is some of the things that we do in Nairobi, in Kenya. Actually, Kenya, not just Nairobi. We've got a group of women. Okay, we call them STEM women, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, because we know those are the areas that are really problematic for girls. And we partner with the UNESCO Nairobi office. We also partner with the Ministry of Education. We also partner with the Kenya National Commission for UNESCO. So that group of, and then also industry, maybe tech industry, so forth and so on. Some of the projects that the girls have been able to do is IT, programming, something that they never think about, because if you look at the percentage of women in IT is less than 20%. So IT is really badly affected, yet we're talking about artificial intelligence. So these are some of the things that we do. And so this group of women, we've got engineers, architects, marine scientists, chemists like myself, and so forth and so on, pilots even. And so when we go, we give our story. How did you become what you are? And so you start by, I was walking to school without shoes like myself. And the rats were hitting me at night because sometimes I didn't have a blanket. That is me. I slept on the floor. That is me. But then I made it. So education is the only way out. And so when we tell the girls like that, they look at you and they're like, no, you never went through all that. But of course I went through all that. So now coming back to the foundation. So those are some of the things we partner with people with objectives, like-minded objectives, so that we can be able to empower. Of course, the partnerships are very, very important. Exposure. I never used to be a LinkedIn person. No, in fact, it is Facebook once in a while taking photos at the airport to say that I'm traveling. Yeah. No, then later I realized that Facebook is just for people who are probably just trying to show off where they are going. Then I came back to LinkedIn. So I've got so many followers in LinkedIn. Every single day I've got at least 10 people who are following me. You know why? Every time I've got an opportunity from the foundation, and of course I get these opportunities, maybe opportunities for young people in Africa, I post it on the LinkedIn, and now everybody, whether it is in Africa, whether it is outside Africa, they are all following me because of these opportunities I'm sharing. You know, sometimes you see these things and you just like, oh, okay, this is not part of me. But then you know that is going to change somebody's, life. So please share whatever you have. So the foundation is very strong at that, but also the partnerships I've talked about. So those are the 4 pillars of my foundation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. You said something about education, and I'm a little emotional because I really do believe that education is the most important thing. It is the greatest gift that you can give children, is giving them access to a good education, because you have the possibilities really are endless where people can end up. Yeah. I think something else that is also really important is money. Yep. And so I want to look now at our last question before we come to the audience for questions in just about 5 minutes. I want to look at policy. So we're going to look, the G20 was just a couple of months ago in September, and it was held in South Africa, in Johannesburg. Mm-hmm. And next year, Germany and South Africa are going to celebrate 30 years of science and technology cooperation. And while Germany's Federal Minister of Research, Technology and Space was in Johannesburg, her name is Dorothee Bär, she said, quote, "We want to drive research that is geared towards open innovation, which takes account of the diversity of the research landscape and protects biodiversity. Only through our joint efforts in research and innovation will we achieve progress for all." And in bilateral talks there, Federal Research Minister Bear and Blade Nzimande, South Africa's Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, reaffirmed their intention to further expand cooperation and deepen the close ties between both countries. This is all very good news. This is all great. It sounds like a wonderful place to start. But now, those of you on the ground working locally, so to speak, what kind of policy frameworks do you need these words to become in order to help facilitate the types of collaboration that you're working on? I want to begin with the two of you who are working in South Africa. Candice Eslick, I'd like to start with you. Looking at projects like the one that you do, GreenQuest, what do you need in terms of policy to help take GreenQuest to the next level?
Yeah, that's a really great question, also a very tough question to answer. I think within policy, I think if we incorporate maybe more young researchers, young scientists that are involved in policy making, I think that would bridge a really big gap. On top of that, I think that in general, there just needs to be a bigger budget for science and research, especially in South Africa. And we need a more promotion of these activities in South Africa, yes, yeah.
All right, thanks so much. Sven, I'll turn to you now. What kind of policy frameworks would help expand and deepen the types of collaboration that you're working on?
Yeah, it is very important. And I think I'm going to talk now a little bit about the kerosene project, where your final product is a sustainable aviation fuel. And I'm going to turn your question around in terms of why is this working well? And the reason it's working well is because there is a mandate. There are people changing from fossil fuels to renewable fuels. It's more expensive, it's inconvenient, it's a real hassle. There's a burning issue of climate change which we have to address, but at the same time, everybody and in the world is battling with this. Without a mandate, it's very, very tough to move these things forward and to get the programs up and running. So for me, that is one critical thing that has been a huge support to this project, and I think to similar projects as well. So those kind of policies need to be rolled out more generally, and as far as possible, also to be globally mandated. Having it working in the EU, planes fly from outside of the EU. That doesn't work so well anymore at that point. So that for me is an absolutely critical one that needs to be done. Then the other thing that we need, I think, which is maybe a bit of a gap going forward, is in transitioning to the end state. We all know what the end state should potentially look like in terms of us being completely renewable. The way there is I mean, the end state is fairly clear or vaguely defined, shall we say. The pathway there is very messy. And particularly in the energy industry, there are such huge investments that have been made. How do we transition these slowly but surely going forward, so that we can use existing facilities to go forward? And things like flexible allocation of your molecules within a huge chemical plant or in an industrial facility is the kind of thing that will enable, I think, more transition to happen more quickly, and a whole lot of innovation, a whole field of innovation is going to be unlocked if in fact policy enables one to take care of that, take advantage of that.
Thank you so much, Sven. Catherine, I want to come to you now to ask a little bit about what kind of policy frameworks, in your work with youth and with women, what do you need in terms of policy to help more girls become a part of science?
Absolutely. No, thank you again for that question. Let me also declare that I'm not declaring anything wrong. I'm just trying to share information. I sit in the United Nations Science, Technology, Innovation. I'm one of the 10 members of a group that advise the Secretary General through the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UNDESA. And so what my role there is representing Africa. We are two Africans. One is from we're talking about the islands, the small islands. I talk about the large, the land. And so some of the things that I look at is that the African Union, they have got a strategy called STISA, that is Science, Technology, Innovation Strategy for Africa. Mm-hmm. Why am I talking about this? It's so important because from that strategy, we see gender equality, we see education for girls, and so forth and so on. It translates very closely with my foundation because we are trying to promote access. So now, let me come back now to the UNESCO. UNESCO also, I sit in the advisory board, and we are looking at some of the areas, particularly three pillars that we always discuss about. One is dismantling the stereotypes that are saying girls cannot do STEM. And so my foundation is looking at that, and we preach the gospel to everybody who wants to listen. The second one is pathways, different pathways. When I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, I only knew about 3 careers. One, my dad thought that you only get educated to get married to a doctor. So that is the closest you get to being a doctor, or engineer, or lawyer. But now, I am not necessarily have to get married to a lawyer or a doctor and so forth and so on. The question is, what are the pathways? So now we go to the schools and educate girls about pathways. You can be a biochemist. That never existed before in my careers. So, those are some of the things, so opportunities. Artificial intelligence, data science, and so forth and so on. The other third issue or pillar that UNESCO is interested in is a safe working environment for women and girls, particularly women. Well, girls are not working, women are working. And what we're trying to say is this. I give you an example. And so once upon a time, I worked in the petroleum industry. And there was this particular woman who was an electrical engineer. And she left electrical engineering department to move to education and environment and health and so forth and so on. I said, Lucy, why did you move? Electrical engineer is very, very important. I mean, you need to be an engineer. She said, no, the critical mass. I don't have many people to support me. Women like to be supported. So she left that department of electrical engineering because of critical mass. There was no other woman. So the point, what UNESCO is trying to say, is that we need to support women in their working environment so that they can retain their careers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So my foundation supports all that.
Oh, thank you. That's really, really great. Yeah. If we have time later, I want to ask about how we can support women and girls better on these pathways. But before we open the floor to questions, Bert, I want to ask you quickly, what kind of policy frameworks would help facilitate more collaborations like some of those that we see here at the table today?
I would say if you really want to go for transformative collaborations, we need to have a bundle of measures. Not only one, we have long-term plans and we also have strategic settings. It's clear that education has to become first. So but then to enable talents, you have to exchange between the regions. I think that's also important. And exchange always in both directions, so not a one way. So we need the famous brain circulation and not the brain drain in the one or other direction. And therefore we need a strategic project. It's good to have like the project with kerosene or something. People also want to have a vision where you work on. We also have to be able to work on IP, on stuff. So really have a broad network, smaller networks, and also the boundaries with Catherine says that we include gender equality, that we have specific programs where we put some focus in. And this needs to be done together in a strategic, transformative approach.
Thank you so much. All right, audience, it's your turn now. Do we have anyone here in the audience who has a question for any of our panelists? I think I saw this hand first, and then I'll come to here. And I saw you, we'll do you after these two here. If you want to direct your question to someone specific, you can, or you can just say, for whoever wants to take it, please.
Okay, thank you. I'd be curious to learn if there are any countries in Africa that have a special opportunity in changing the energy mix, or is anyone doing anything differently that we could learn from?
Is anyone doing anything? Sven, please.
Yeah, I'll talk on behalf of South Africa. I mean, we
want to ask about other countries also.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it holds for some of the others as well. I think the 80% plus coal at the moment, a couple of 1.5 gigawatts of nuclear, but the push, the amount of wind and solar that's coming in there is truly fantastic. We as a company are close to a gigawatt worth of renewables that we are now buying in to replace old steam, coal-fired steam generation. So it's huge at that scale. I think a lot of Africa is still very energy poor. There's a great opportunity. There are big opportunities in the sort of the Ingwe complex in Congo for hydroelectric to come in over there. But in general, I think just basically there's going to be a huge demand for electricity and electrical power, and doing that through solar and wind is absolutely enormous, and there's basically a big shift going in that direction, if that helps.
Thank you very much, Sven. Bernd, I think you wanted to respond as well.
I only can add then, you mentioned already, certainly Africa is very rich in renewable resources and has a lot of possibilities to develop, but it's different in the different regions. So where you are, if you have the called WASCAL, West African Cooperation part, which are more the countries close to the big desert, their water is a big issue for some questions. As you said, there's hydro is still a big possibility in the Congo River, and this needs to be developed, but it needs to be developed together. So where we can help, and certainly Germany, Europe, we are interested. Also, we need to import probably energy on the longer term. We also want to develop technology together, and the biggest issue is also for the African countries to have their own energy market. I think there's a lot to be done. So it's not a good question, but not easy to answer. But it's full of opportunities. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Oh, yes, but we have 3 or 4 more people who really want to ask
on
questions.
that question.
Yes, but quickly, please.
You know, Africa, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, you realize that burning charcoal is one of number 1, pollution and everything. And so therefore, governments in Kenya, we are discouraging charcoal burning. And now what we have done, we got a group of scientists, engineers and so forth and so on. We are coming up with biochar. You know what is biochar? That is carbon that is stable, has been like you take wood and try to burn it, but under pyrolysis conditions, you control so that the carbon is very stable and you store energy that way. So that is what we are trying to encourage, because kerosene, sometimes even people can't afford kerosene, and sometimes the kerosene is killing people. You are in this charcoal house, and so you light kerosene, you forget, you sleep, you inhale all this, and following day you're found dead. So we're trying to discourage that. And so the biochar solution, as opposed to the charcoal burning, is one of the ways that we are doing in Nairobi. There's a group of people. I can always give the link on that one.
Please do. Okay, I want to come to another audience question. If we have a microphone for here.
Thank you.
Hold it a little bit closer.
Yes. First of all, I would like to thank you. My name is Dr. Nisreen Abdel Fattah Abdel. I'm from Sudan. I have been working with energy field more than 15 years, okay, in electricity sector with different projects. So I have one comment and 2 questions based on that comment. The one comment is the problem for energy in Africa is not only money, it's not education, it's not capacity building. The problem in Africa is regarding to decision makers and leadership. This is first. Second, the question that I'm going to ask, to what extent your stakeholder analysis for any project is close to the country mission and vision? This is one question. The last question is, are you involving scientists, researchers in your stakeholder analysis? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think if there's someone here that would like to take that question, Bernd?
Maybe I can start. Candice could add, for example, in the Green Quest project, there we work together with several African universities, with social scientists, with economists, and this is really a stakeholder process to really develop and find a solution which at the end works in a specific community, which works for a city which is different than to do it. So the answer is yes, we do it, but it's only one single project. So it has to be rolled out. And many things are a leadership question. And we need to align bottom-up approaches with top-down approaches.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. With regards to a Green Quest project, for example, there are people studying policy making and what policies can we recommend to further enhance like energy rollout, specifically with LPG. And I think it's also important for these social scientists actually going into communities and asking communities, would you accept this fuel? How much would you pay for this fuel? What would the limits be, for example? And that also then informs us back at our group. But I do agree with you. Leaders need to be held accountable for the poor decisions that they make as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yes, a question right here.
Thank you so much. My name is Valerie. I'm from Cameroon. I have 2 questions. One, when we see the word collaboration, one thing that comes to mind is equity. And I want to ask the panel, how do they ensure that those who come to the table come from a place of power, not from a place where they are ready to receive whatever is being handed over to them? Then the second question, which I would like them to reflect on, is one of the major challenges that could come to a just collaboration could be corruption. But I didn't hear it come up in the panel. So what do you think? How do we address that? Because that is a real big issue in African countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm also looking at the clock, and so I'll ask you to maybe address, if someone wants to address maybe the first question, and someone else can address the second question, but quickly in the interest of time.
I take the second.
Please.
I take the first.
All right, let's go.
Okay, what was the first one?
What was the first question?
Okay, the issue of equity. Okay, let me give you an example, a live example of the equity that we are doing. I also did declare that I also work, I'm the acting CEO of the African Academy of Sciences, in addition to the foundation. And so the African Academy of Sciences is implementing a project, the partnership between EU and AU, that is European Union, European Research Commission, ERC, and African Union Commission. So this is a project, a big project, which is 25 million euro, the first part, and the second part is now about to come, which is IRISE 2. IRISE stands for Africa Research Initiative for Scientific Excellence in Africa. And so what we do in terms of equity, addressing equity, is that we make sure that we've got like 47 institutions that have been given these grants, the grantees that are benefiting from the EU-AU partnership. And so we make sure that they are 50-50. Women, 50. And so sometimes, okay, so some of the conditions are that you must have finished your PhD not more than 5 years. We make it 8 or 7 for women. We say, okay, but you must give us some motivation. After your PhD, did you give birth? How many children? If you say I gave birth to 4 children, we give you 4 years extra. And so that is just to make sure that we also have another project called Affiliate, that is the African Academy of Sciences Affiliates. And so we make sure that it's 50-50. So that girls 50, boys 50. That way, equity is very, very important. The second part
is Taban.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on this, but I just show that we are sometimes facing it in some cooperation. So corruption is certainly a global issue, a global problem, but it's also in some practical things it really arises working together, for example, with the university where we have experienced it, that it's difficult to transfer equipment and to bring it there, that we don't have to pay these additional tariffs, I would call it, which are due to corruption, which are happening. And I think this is a key topic where we need to work on, and that we really have that the money which is devoted to any kind of project is really coming to the people.
Yeah. And just from a company perspective, I mean, we insist on being squeaky clean because we know that the EU is going to audit us on the project. And so corruption is absolutely not an option. We're completely against it. Unfortunately, it does, I think, play out in the bigger field. I think it's a hurdle. It's a lot of sand in the gearbox. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, audience members, for your question. I apologize if you had a question and we didn't have a chance to get to you because everyone can see we have about exactly 2 minutes left. So I've got one final question for my panelists. It's going to be the same question for all of you. Audience, you will kind of recognize how this question starts. What is the next step that we have to take to break down the wall of creating and facilitating just and global collaborations, either when it comes to African-European collaborations like some that we have here today or in other global pairings, so that we can move from transactional to transformative in the global energy shift? Candace, you have about 20 seconds.
Okay. Someone, one of the Falling Walls Lab participants actually presented on this, and it really, really struck a chord with me. And I think breaking the wall of permits, specifically for researchers, African researchers traveling abroad to study and continue their research, I think is a big, big thing.
All right, permitting, Sven.
We were very fortunate in our projects that we had great support from HZB, from ULIC, etc., just in terms of how does all of this work? How do you put together your applications? What is important? What is not important? That support, I believe, is critically important to enable this.
Support. Catherine, quickly in 20 seconds.
Around the bureaucracy particularly.
Okay, so very much. So Catherine.
Thank you. So our policy framework must address equity. Very, very important. And that is what my foundation advocates. Finance, access to finance is very, very important. And also capacity building of the technology. So critical because otherwise the technology is becoming useless if we are not going to capacity build. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Bernd Recht to close us
I
out.
see 6 seconds. So I think the key is that we always have to be aware that we are on the same planet. We are facing the same problems there, and we have to solve it together with equity. We have to discuss about the solutions and then do action together. So this is the key take home for me.
I think it is the key take home to do stuff together. Thank you for doing this panel together with me, everyone. Bernd Recht, Candice Eslick, Sven Godor, Catherine Gila. Thank you so much for your questions.